So I don't think I see nothing. I was never able to see color, but I would imagine I see a collage of gray, because it's never 100% dark, except in the middle of the night or when I don't want to look. But so there's always a shade of something. I can't pick up any movement, but yeah, it's never completely, totally dark. So I was 6 months old when my folks discovered that they move a rattle next to my face, or anywhere for that matter, my eyes don't follow it. And off they went to the doctor to discover that I was born with a condition called Leber's congenital amaurosis. So in a sense what it means, it's probably the worst form of RP, retinitis pigmentosa, and it affects the retina. So although the eye developed pretty normally, the receptive cells, as far as I understand it, didn't develop at all. One of my first memories when my folks took me off to one of the local creches in Durban. And I was the only blind kid. I remember hiding out in the fireplace in this little house where they took me every day for a couple of hours, just probably to socialize about the sight of kids, or the kids in general. And at home, as far as I remember, there was nothing really special in terms of making the environment blind friendly. I think they allowed me to be me from a very young age. I remember arriving at school 5.5 years old. I was so lost. It was just crazy. And for me, the hardest part was I couldn't believe it. My folks left me behind in this place of total unknown darkness. But gradually, I got into it, and I realized that, there are hundreds of kids in the same school with similar challenges. Some of them are totally blind like myself. Others can see a little bit. And I think in a way, I know it's the best thing that they could have done, but I think for them, it must have been incredibly difficult. So back at school, they told me I've got 3 options. I can either become a dominee, a lawyer, or a switchboard operator. And I just thought that dominee and lawyer sounds just way too scallum to my liking. I'd rather go answer the phone. Now, those were the logical things at the time that blind kids did. They either went off to answer the phone or study law, and occasionally 1 or 2 got selected if they were bright enough to go to physiotherapy in London. And none of it appealed to me. I wanted to, as a kid, I was fascinated by electronics and anything that's got wires and that's wireless and that you can take apart like any youngster. I was just fascinated by these things, and I didn't see myself doing the law thing. So I left school. I actually started a small little computer business back at school, just supplying computers to the odd business owner in Worcester that was prepared to buy one from a blind guy. And my first job, official job after school, was to answer the phone. I did end up being a switchboard operator for 5 years, answering the phone on average anything between 500 and 900 times a day. Almost drove me insane, but I think I learned a lot in that time. Speaking to people all day, every day, 500-600 times a day. You get to know their voices, even the background when they phone into the bank. And I was working for the bank at the time, and we dealt with a huge amount of car dealers. And just by the background, they don't even have to speak. I could hear the sound in the background, and I can already say the guy's name without even him announcing himself over the phone. So as I was slogging through my day job back in 1992, a blind friend of mine called me up one day, and he said, "Hein, there's this opportunity to sail to Rio. Some other guy wants to sail with two blind guys to Rio, do a kind of transatlantic crossing." And I was like, sure, anything, to get away from the switchboard for a couple of weeks, that could work for me. So yeah, I made my way to the Royal Cape Yacht Club, and I met these guys who were really keen to do this adventure. And I had this thing that if anybody's going to be on that yacht, it will be me. I just decided. So there was a couple of blind guys who actually applied. And I just thought, no, I need to get on this yacht. I need to do this. I don't know why. I just had this urge to, since a kid, I've loved water. I hated it initially, but after my mum sent me off for swimming lessons at the age of 3, I got to love water. And I'm very grateful to them, because they probably thought, if Hein falls into a pool, he can't see it coming. It's going to be the end of him. So my relationship with water actually goes back many, many years. Just sitting around, by that time, there's not a lot of stories left to tell. The other guys on board the yacht, and a lot of me time. And I just came face to face with the sheer size of nature. And I think for the first time I actually comprehended it. Sort of, you're so small in the bigger scheme of things, on the one hand. On the other side, if you can get yourself halfway across the Atlantic Ocean and you're still alive, there's a deaf man in charge of the operation, I guess you can achieve anything you want. So as a blind athlete, it's sometimes very difficult to find training partners. And also with my schedule flying up and down Johannesburg, Cape Town, all over the country, in fact all over the world to go do motivational presentations, your schedule is different to the next person. So I do a lot of my training indoors. And I spend quite a bit of time on the treadmill. In fact, I train for the entire Hong Kong Marathon, which is a fairly tough, or I found it to be incredibly tough, marathon. I trained for the entire event only on my treadmill. So quite a bit of indoor training. And for me to stay on the treadmill, I actually need to keep my fingers, or one hand at least, my fingertips on the frame in front of me, just so that I can have a sense of direction. And like the average guy would probably grab an iPod and listen to music, but I can probably do it. But for me, it's easier to actually hear my footsteps on the treadmill, and because it also helps with my rhythm and keeping my balance on the treadmill. So I spend quite a bit of time on the indoor trainers, whether it's the stationary bike or the actual treadmill. So I met Mike a couple of years ago, and he suggested to me, he actually sent me an email and said, "Hein, how about running 7 marathons on 7 continents in 1 year?" So I said, sure, that's quite a bit of traveling and quite a bit of doing, but, why not? So let's start with the most difficult one. Let's go down south. And we then applied to the company that arranged this and got ourselves waitlisted about 4 years ago. And in March this year, we got confirmation that we actually been confirmed for 2013. So a couple of weeks ago, in fact 2 weeks ago, was the first time that I actually ran with Mike. And off-road running is not, I'm used to road running, but I'm not used to trail running. And the Arctic environment is simply, it's basically a serious trail run. So the two of us got a huge amount of work. In terms of his community, he needs to get around the fact that he's now a little wider to his right, because I prefer to run on his right-hand side, because my guide dogs always walk on my left. So, it's always, I'm quite used to that. So I also prefer to run on that side with my guide on my left hand. And given the rugged terrain, he will be doing quite a bit of talking. But the one thing that really scares me is the wind, because I rely 100% on my hearing. If I do a road race, I mean, I run with the person next to me with a piece of rope between the two of us, but I listen to the footsteps around me to pretty much determine my direction. So if there's a right-hand bend coming up and I can hear the people run in front of me, I mean, I can anticipate that. So my running guide will say to me, I could be doing a right-hand turn in the next 5 to 10 meters, but I already know it's coming. But if there's wind, a howling wind, I'll not be able to hear anything. I mean, even his command, shouting left or right, or, you know, so at this stage, I do not know, I don't know how we're going to do that. One of the greatest lessons that I've learned in life is that if you give just a little bit of what you've got, you'll get more than you can ever imagine. You know, I remember sitting behind the switchboard thinking, there must be a way out of this. You know, there must be something more to life. I think in a way, you know, the work that I do today, 20 years down the line, inspiring people to be whatever they want to be, and to be motivated, to be energetic, to make the most out of life, is I never want to go back to be that person. It was soul destroying for me. How's about that?
If you're in there,
Money on there.